please excuse me, I will speak in English. As the President mentioned, my topic will be on the rise of BRICS and geopolitics of de-dollarization. And this topic, especially de-dollarization, has been mentioned already by several speakers before me. But I would like to look a little bit more in detail. And first of all, I will mention that currently the international monetary system is, as we know, it's largely shaped by Bretton Woods system, and even now the US dollar remain the backbone of global finance, and all these Western control institutions such as IMF and World Bank are still representing the main financial architecture. However, this architecture has been generated persistent asymmetries of power, especially from the perspective of large emerging economies. And there was a turning point with the financial crisis of 2007-2008, when for many emerging economies this crisis exposed the vulnerabilities of dollar-centric system, but also the risks which are associated to the dependence on the stability and policy choices of the United States and the Western control financial system. So in this context, BRICS at that time composed only by 5 members, starting to talk about the de-dollarization, and since the first meeting in 2009, the group has been framed its initiative on building a more multipolar financial system. So the guiding question of my talk is actually how and to what extent BRICS initiative promote de-dollarization and financial multipolarity. And when we talk about de-dollarization, it doesn't mean in the BRICS understanding abolishing the dollar. It's actually mean reducing excessive dependence on the dollar. So what I'm interested in is not just whether BRICS complain about dollars, but what actually they are doing. What kind of institution they are creating, what kind of instrument they are developing, and how much impact those steps really have. So I will move over 3 layers. So first, I will explain very briefly why BRICS care about de-dollarization. Second, what kind of initiative they have been launched. And third, what are the limits and contradiction of this process. So BRICS, especially BRICS Plus, it's a very broad grouping which is actually include diverse political system, diverse economic structure, and very diverse foreign policy orientation. So what unites them is not an ideological uniformity, but rather shared concern about underrepresentation in the Western-led financial system, and also vulnerability within a dollar-centric base order. So for BRICS, de-dollarization is not an ideological project of replacing the dollar. It's better understood as risk management and pursuit of strategic autonomy. So there are several motivations which stand out. The first one is reducing, as I said, exposure to dollar-related shocks. The second one is protection against sanction and financial correction that United States has been engaged in. The third is policy autonomy, because they want to be less dependent on dollar funding and Western institutions. And the third is having a stronger voice in the global financial governance. So early steps toward the dollarization within BRICS started in 2009 in Yekaterinburg summit, when they start to call for creating a new reserve global currency that should be more diversified, stable, and predictable. And they start to encourage the use of national currency in the trade instead of using dollar. And the next step in 2011 in Sanya Summit, when they start to express their concern over dollar volatility and its impact on emerging markets. And from 2013 onward, they started to implement different mechanisms, concrete mechanisms for cooperation. So the most important summit, I would say, it's the summit which took place in 2014 at Fortaleza Summit, when BRICS decided to establish two main institutions. The first one is New Development Bank, the second one is the Contingent Reserve Arrangement, which both of them are somehow highlight the group dual strategy. One is expanding the development finance outside of traditional Bretton Woods system and building a parallel liquidity safety net. So BRICS started since that moment to implement different strategies, concrete strategies to reduce dollar dependence among its members, and one of them is local currency settlements. So bilateral and intra-BRICS trade, it's done in local currencies. The second one is currency swap arrangement. The third one is loans in national currency. And the third one is, the fourth one is digital currency experimentation. And I will try to very briefly talk about some of these points. And the first one is the contingent reserve arrangement, which is actually a parallel liquidity safety net. It has a pool of $100 billion that BRICS member states can draw, can use when it's necessary, especially in the time of crisis. Yes, what it's important to say is within the BRICS framework, contingent reserve arrangement is not designed as a substitute for IMF, but rather as a complement. So those countries which are not so willing to use IMF, they can rely on BRICS contingent reserve arrangement. Another pillar is represented by bilateral currency swap lines, and since 2014 we can see a growing network between China, Russia, China and South Africa, China, Brazil, Russia and China, and more recently China and United Arab Emirates. And this arrangement allows central banks to exchange currency directly and to provide liquidity to their domestic banks and companies engaged within the partner country. Yes, and this is reducing actually the need to go through dollar as an intermediary currency. If we look at the second institution, which is New Development Bank, New Development Bank was created as an alternative source for long-term finance, and it's particularly focused on infrastructure and sustainable development projects across the global south. And usually, in practice, if we try to understand what this bank is doing, we can see that until 2023, it has financed almost 105 projects, and between 2023 and mid-2025, also it's approved more 76 projects, all of these with a totally of $60 billion. So all of them, as I said, they are focusing on infrastructure development. But what is important for New Development Bank is the share of its portfolio. It's dominated by the local currency. So if we look at how they started to increase the use of local currency, we can see that in 2019, in the NDB portfolio, only 20% of the exchanges were in local currency, but this is increased to almost 24 in 2023, and by mid-2025 it's arrived at 30%. So this make the bank as one of the multilateral banks which has the highest proportion of local currency lending. If we look now at the intra-BRICS trade and the shift to national currency, we can see that this is another axis for the dollarization. This is going quite gradually, and we can see that the trade has been increased from 170 billion in 2008 to 700 billion in 2024. So within this growing volume, the share of local currency has risen significantly. And according with the latest statistics, we can see that between China and Russia, for example, 70% of trade is done in national currency in 2023 and 90% of trade in 2024. And if we look at India and Russia, 90% of their trade is done in national currency, while China and Brazil, almost half of bilateral trade is conducted in their currency. However, what is important to mention is the central role of yuan, Chinese yuan. Actually, Chinese yuan is accounting for almost 47% of BRICS intra-group currency use. When we talk about alternatives that BRICS is trying to propose, we should also take into account infrastructure through which payments are done. And since 2018, BRICS countries, particularly China and Russia, have been accelerating the efforts to develop alternative payment systems. So they have been trying to link the system, national system, by enabling cross-border transaction outside of SWIFT. So the idea is to avoid using the SWIFT system and the networks of Visa and MasterCard. So for this they have been implementing different measures to recognize their national cards. They have been also moved to expand the acceptance of their cards and the system over all BRICS members. And we can see that following the war on Ukraine and also the prospect given by the unpredictable US presidency, the efforts of BRICS have been accelerated. So, for example, Russia has shifted almost all its oil and gas trade into rubles and other currency, while India has been starting to introduce its own currency into settlement mechanism within the BRICS. So recently there have been some discussion about introducing the BRICS digital currency and introducing also the concept of BRICS Pay, which is mean that by creating a unified payment system which connect all this national infrastructure via integrated platform. So BRICS already started to engage in different pilot projects, for example in South Africa in 2019, in Moscow in 2024. So they are advancing on this way. So if we look at the last initiative in 2024 and 2025, we can say that ongoing initiatives are focusing on developing this common payment card and integrated digital payment network, are also strengthening their own institution as buffer against dollar liquidity shocks. And also they are trying to expanding their membership with Uzbekistan or Bangladesh becoming first non-members, non-BRICS members of the new development banks. So these are the ongoing initiatives. So to conclude my talk, we can say that first of all, the dollarization in BRICS, it's a very long term, it's and very complex process, which is driven by risk management, but also by geopolitics. So BRICS doesn't try to kill the dollar, but they are trying to rebalance global finance or to pluralize the alternative. So it's contributing to a very slow but steady transformation of international monetary system. And what is important is that BRICS initiative come up also with some normative challenges to existing institutions. For example, the new development bank, it's emphasized that there is no political conditionality in lending. There is also no request for specific governance or policy reform, which are usually reforms linked with IMF and World Bank. Also, BRICS institutions are more inclusive in representing their members in decision making, and this is very important for emerging and developing countries. So we can say that instead of a sudden break, BRICS is trying to build parallel mechanisms that gradually diversify. Despite the BRICS dynamics, we can observe that there are also some structural limits, and the structural limits are related, first of all, to internal divergence between their members. The second, to the fact that still the main members of BRICS are remaining tied to the dollar. If we try to look at the foreign reserves exchanges, we can see that China, India, Russia, and Brazil are actually among top 10 holders of foreign exchange reserves in dollars. So this is something that is keeping them tied to the US system, Western system. And also, if we look among BRICS members, we can see that actually in practice only China has a strong yuan, yes, which is somehow having a global weight in the payments. Other BRICS currencies are more constrained by a small market. So if we try to look or to understand what are some of the future trajectory of the BRICS, we can say that the first one is we can expect that BRICS will deepen their existing mechanism. The second is that BRICS will try to expand to new members and partners. But this kind of trajectory will bring somehow different implications for the actors. So from BRICS themselves, they will have not only more autonomy, but also more responsibility in front of other countries, because they should provide a stable and predictable financial governance. Also for US and Western institutions, there will be a pressure to reform the governance and make their system more inclusive if they want to remain relevant and legitimate. And for smaller developing countries, they will have more room to maneuver and negotiate better terms, but also they will have a more complex environment that they should navigate between multiple centers of financial power. So they should take somehow the side. So to conclude, we can say that BRICS are contributing to a very slow but gradual polarization of the global finance, and while the dollar is still central and will likely to remain for a while so, is not longer entirely without a rival. So through all this arrangement that BRICS is doing, they are building slowly more multipolar monetary landscape in which emerging power possess more tools, more options, and more leverage than in the previous Bretton Woods era. That's all what I wanted to say. Thank you very much for